So during this economic depression, you're going to eventually see farm workers coming together and organizing to fight for higher wages and better working conditions. Part of the reason why you see this organization is because of the National Industrial Recovery Act. Now, the Recovery Act itself was meant to give the president power to intervene in the economy and help to regulate wages and prices at this time. But the Industrial Recovery Act did not specifically mention farm workers, and so it didn't really benefit them in many ways. But one way that the Industrial Recovery Act did help out farm workers was that it gave all workers the right to participate in organized labor, which basically meant that they could join labor unions and not be persecuted for it. All right. And so the federal government now is supporting unionization. That's the significance of the National Industrial Recovery Act for farm workers. So you're going to eventually see a number of strikes taking place in Texas and California among the farm workers. And the growers, right, the people who own the farms, are going to react in several different ways to these strikes. One way is by getting local law enforcement to come and put an end to the strike. So you would see law enforcement getting involved. If people were picketing, they would get harassed by the police, possibly beaten, jailed. And so in that way, they would put pressure on the farm workers to stop their strike. Another way that growers would react would be by bringing in strike breakers, right? A strike breaker is basically someone who they get to replace the farm workers, another worker who would replace the farm worker, and that would help to put an end to the strike because now you have other people taking that job. The grower doesn't have an incentive to give in to the demands of the farm workers because they have someone else working for them, a strike breaker. Okay, so strike breakers and getting local law enforcement to help was some of the ways that growers would try to bring an end to these strikes during this time. But you would see some successes for the farm workers who were striking during this time. They began to organize their strikes during times where there was a high demand for laborers, right? So especially like, during harvest time, you need a lot of laborers, and if they go on strike during that time, it's more likely that the grower would give in to their demands, right? And so farm workers started to organize around those time periods, right? They had to because farm workers were seasonal workers, right? And so there's seasons where they're not really needed, and so it wouldn't make sense to strike around those times. You have to strike when there is a big demand for your labor. Another thing that helped to bring attention to the issues of the farm workers during this time, around the end of the Great Depression, was a book written by Carey McWilliams called Factories in the Field. It highlighted the issues that farm workers were dealing with and brought about national attention to this issue. And so you would eventually see a reaction to this coming from a Wisconsin senator named Robert La Follette. And Follette basically put together a committee that would investigate what was going on with the farm workers, and they eventually would release a report that showed that growers were really taking advantage of farm workers during this time. And so you're going to see a lot more publicity for the issues that were plaguing the farm workers during the Great Depression.